So, UFC Vegas 29 and PFL 5 have been done and dusted, and three fights on the main card for UFC Vegas 29 took my interest the most. I'll be honest with you, it was the Danige versus Korean Zombie fight, which was the main event. Matt Brown versus what's his name? Matt Brown versus Diego Lima, and Alexei Olenek versus Sergey Spivak. And on PFL was Rory Mcdonald versus Gleison Tibau fight, which that's actually a controversial kind of fight at the moment, because they're having the argument about the win. And basically, Rory Mcdonald isn't too happy about the win, and well, I'll get to that towards the end. But starting with the first fight, the main event of the UFC Vegas 29 fight card, or the main fight card. I initially generally thought that Danige might have had this, but watching how the Korean Zombie performed in that fight, in fact, watching the Korean Zombie how he performed in his last fight, it actually did a kind of arouse my suspicions and concerns. Not that I'm kind of personally rooting for Danige, but I thought he'd be the better fighter out of these two guys out of this fight. I thought that Danige would take with him, but looking at Korean Zombie, his track record and his past fights, and looking at how he performed in this fight, he's well-rounded fighter, a really well-rounded fighter. He's good on his feet, his stand-up's good, and he's also good on the ground. His ground game is also good as well, and you saw that in this fight. Wherever the fight went, whether it was going to go on the ground, by the fence, in the clinch, or while standing up, striking, in the stand-up, his fight game, his fight IQ was on point. It was really good, and not to bash Danige or anything, or to say anything bad about the guy, because he's a good fighter. I mean, I love the way he performed with Gavin Tucker in his last fight. That's what you saw, that knockout power. And the fight was, it's one of those fights he had that I say the fight was over before he even started. So, as I was saying before, whether the fight went on the ground or whether it was during the stand-up between the two guys, the Korean Zombie was always ready and always prepared to attack, to defend, to perform, and he did that really, really well. Danige really, I could see that he was struggling more. I say I was struggling more on the ground than he was during the stand-up. So, I would say that the Korean Zombie, his fight IQ, his just overall performance, how he performed, how he fought in the in that fight. It proved too much for Danige. It just proved too much for the guy. What was the other little note that I said? While he was fighting, while his stand-up, the Zombie didn't necessarily didn't wait too long. He was calm and calculated, like I say about the other fighters, especially those guys in the heavyweight division. When this guy was calm, took his time, but eventually, he did something, and he rushed in and he attacked. He would launch an attack when the time was right, when he could do so intelligently and do the most possible damage, and be dominating the fight. And not much else I can say. Of course, I'd say a lot more if I was talking with somebody here, co-hosting with somebody else. But overall, that's what I thought about the fight. And just to reiterate about that point, to emphasize my initial point that I was starting out with, I thought that Danige was going to take the win from this fight against the Korean Zombie, and probably that, for me, that was somewhat naive, and probably shows just how much of this sport I'm yet to learn, just to grasp my understanding of, and just to get to know how things really work. Because I think when I say I thought that Danige would take with the win, in his last fight with Gavin Tucker, just how that KO, that knockout, just sent Gavin Tucker down to the ground. And I think in that sort of situation where the person knocks at the other opponent so quickly with a single blow within the first 30 seconds, 1 minute, 2 minutes or so, just in such a short space of time. I think maybe I can say safely that they just got lucky in that instance. You know, they landed the shot perfectly, and they took the win. So, Alexei Oleinik versus Sergey Spivak. So, the fight went the way that I thought it would. I think initially I was basing my money on Oleinik to win, because of his track record, his past history, which, as I'm making this podcast right now, this episode, I've completely forgotten. I should have made notes on it, but what the heck, he does have a really long fight history. I mean, at 43 years old, he's been in this game, the fight game, not necessarily just in the UFC, but he's been in mixed martial arts for a very, very long time. He's a veteran of the sport, so this is someone who knows their stuff. But Spivak, of course, is the younger bloods, younger, fresher talents coming up in the ranks in the sports in the UFC. So, at 26 years of age, Spivak, and then Oleinik at 43 years of age. I mean, obviously, naturally, the younger guy, and this is a young man's game, fighting is young man's game. Spivak would have the advantage, and you could see it in the fight. You know, he was fast on his feet, wasn't flat-footed at all, although springy and in his step. His footwork was quick. You know, he had the speed and the agility, and how he would turn out or spin out of those clinches by the fence was really impressive. It was really good. And I even put a poll out on my Instagram stories just in the days leading up to the fight, and I think the result was 100% Spivak was going to win this fight. And I thought, okay, I get that. I understand he's a younger person, he's faster, so he'll have more energy. His recovery will be much better. His cardio will be much better. But overall, he'll be able to recover sooner, quicker, and will be faster in the octagon. But I thought, I was thinking of other fights that I've seen before in the past, whereby one of the opponents is even way past the retirement age, then they're like early to maybe mid-40s. And they're fighting someone who's younger than they are, who's at least not older than 35 years old, not older than 36 or 37 years old, 36 or 37 years of age. And they won the fight. But in this case, in this instance, that didn't happen. I could see that Spivak again had the young man's advantage. He was much more energetic and was moving really well in the octagon, moving really well. And I can see that Oleinik, his performance, he at some points when it was backed up against a corner by the fence, he had to have his guard up. And also I could see that how he was throwing blows and how he was throwing strikes, it did look quite slow. I mean, compared to Spivak, it did look the best way I can put it, just as someone who's still very new to this sport, he did look pretty slow and quite sluggish in the octagon. So at one point I thought, okay, this is either how this guy performs, or this is just because he's getting older. He's a lot older. He's now in the territory of, as I was saying about Matt Brown, he's now in the territory age-wise where most athletes, where most mixed martial arts fighters, to be more specific, they start to retire. They consider retire. They start losing their fights. They start to underperform in the cage, and eventually they either retire or the fighting organization, the promoter, just cuts them. They just get rid of them. So and that's one of those situations whereby it's a good example of a fighter, or just in general, everybody, we can't beat father time. As you get older, you get slower, so certain things are not what they used to be. Your speed is not going to be what it was. Your recovery is not going to be what it was before. And unfortunately, those things, you gradually lose them. So, looking at his fight record, I think this will now be his second or third loss in a row now. His last few fights before this fight, he did lose them. So, questions posed in my mind, and I'm sure in the mind of other fight fans, other people in the mixed martial arts community, will this guy be cut from the UFC? There's not much else I can say for that. I mean, he's had such a long history in the sport, a long time. I think he is one of the only fighters, only two fighters to beat an opponent and win by using the Ezekiel choke, which is a specific move which it's actually a nickname for it, which they use in the. It's a nickname for the same move that they use in the US Army. So I'll just wait and see what happens with the UFC if they do cut him. I mean, Anderson Silva managed to stay in the UFC until the age of 45, 46, and so anything's possible if they do. If they do like him, if they do want to keep him, they'll do just that. But wait and see what happens. But yeah, I mean, looking at how he performed in that fight, I wouldn't be surprised if Dana White wants to get rid of the guy, because this sport, unfortunately, in reality, it is a young man's game. So moving on, the third fight that got my interest was Matt Brown versus Diego Lima. So for this fight, I think I was on the fence about it initially in the beginning. So Matt Brown has been fighting in the UFC for a very long time. Well, not the UFC, but I mean overall in mixed martial arts, he's been fighting. He's been in this game for a long time. I think around his mid-30s, about 34, 35. I'm going to go into the fight that what happened, but I mean, just saying why I thought my initial prediction about who would win this fight was the way it was. Matt Brown, who suffered some issues with memory because of all the blows he's taken to his head, I thought he might actually underperform, but that wasn't the case. And I thought the win would go straight to Lima, but no, Matt Brown came out as the best of fighters. But the stand-up from both guys was really good. I was particularly impressed by the stand-up from Matt Brown, and he like the other guy on the other fight that I just mentioned, that I was just talking about, Alexei Oleinik. I hope I'm pronouncing it correctly, guys. Please, if I'm not, correct me in the comment section down below if you're watching this on YouTube. Pronounce that correctly. You know, he's not too far from the same age as Oleinik. He's only about 3 or 4 years older, 3 or 4 years younger. But no, I was impressed by his stand-up. You know, the way he's throwing punches, the way he's throwing strikes, the knees, the leg kicks. You know, he was fighting like someone who's probably 10 years younger than his current age. So yeah, it was really impressive. It was really entertaining to watch. You know, and the right hand they used just to just send that knockout. For me, something I wrote down here is like, maybe despite his age and despite all the things he's been through as a veteran, he potentially he still got it. So you know, wait and see what happens. And I think now he is saying that he wants to fight Nate Diaz. It would be a big fight. True, Nate Diaz is a big name. Matt Brown is also quite a big name in the sport. He's a mixed martial arts veteran. He's been in the sport for so long. So yeah, I'd like to see that if they do, if that fight is given the go ahead by Dana White and the other people and the other guys at the UFC, then yeah, I would look forward to seeing that. That would be an entertaining fight. So moving on, PFL 5, the Rory Mcdonald versus Gleison Tibau fight. So it was an entertaining fight, especially after the first eye poke from Rory Mcdonald, and he poked his opponent in the eye twice. So it is basically what happened is that the fight was great, but clearly, just from looking at it, even as a novice myself, and I'm sure many people out there will agree with me, that the clear winner of this fight was Rory Mcdonald. Even the resulting stats, the resulting numbers even say that the number of attacks, the number of strikes, whether it was a leg kick, whether it was a ground strike or an ordinary strike, takedowns included as well. There was one takedown that Rory managed to get in. But overall, you can clearly see who the winner was. But somehow, the judges came to a conclusion that the win should go to his opponent, Gleison Tibau. I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly, guys. But the win went the other way, which is a complete shock even to me. So as you rightfully said in the post press conference there, and you know, the cameraman that was whoever was handling the camera was doing his due diligence and was focusing the camera on both Rory and the other person in question that's involved, Gleison himself. So you know, it's kind of crazy, and this has happened before when Max Holloway fought Alexander Volkanovski back in sometime last year in Abu Dhabi on Yas Island. It was strange. You could see who the better fighter was in the fight. It was Max Holloway. Obviously, he was giving it his all, was fighting like a warrior in that fight in the octagon. And for some reason, just it was crazy. Even Dana White concurred with what everybody was saying, that you know was Max Holloway was the clear winner. And I really don't understand this. The numbers themselves, you can kind of just look at the numerical data and you can come to your own conclusion who the winner is, who the winner clearly is. And somehow these guys just say no, the win actually goes to this person, the other person who has scored less points, not more points but less points. I mean, the only reason I can think of that comes to mind as to why Tibau probably took the win instead of McDonald, instead of Rory, probably, and this may sound so silly or it may sound so logical to some people, it's the closest thing I can think of, but maybe it's because of the fact that McDonald pokes this guy in the eye probably 2 or 3 times during the whole fight. Maybe that's the reason why. I know Ike pokes are not allowed in MMA. Of course, different organizations have their different rules and standards, but something like an eye poke, I mean, surely PFL, it must also be illegal there, as it is in the UFC and as it is, I'm sure, in Bellator and One Championship and other similar organizations. Excuse me. So yeah, the whole thing really is just crazy, and it's just wow. I mean, the first time I heard of this, I saw it with Max Holloway. I thought, okay, this is just like a one-off. I'm sure it rarely happens, but now it's happened again. Though this is outside of the UFC in a completely different organization, and it's kind of silly. I watched the whole fight. Yeah, it was entertaining, especially after the first eye poke in the first round, and which came from McDonald. But after the eye poke, the two guys really started getting started to get into the fight. Were fighting like crazy. Well, not like crazy, but things became much more entertaining and much more, much more enjoyable as they really got into the fight. McDonald was trying, although he succeeded once. He got one takedown in there. He was trying to get Tibau onto the ground, but Tibau just wouldn't fall down. Even in one point where he nearly got him onto the ground, still it was quite unsuccessful, and Tibau was back on his feet in no time. So it'll be interesting to see if I'm not sure who's responsible for this, if the judges or the commission, the Athletic State Commission in the US, whichever body is responsible for judging combat sports in the United States, in the particular state where this PFL event took place, if they can get that overturned, I'd be happy. I'm sure many fight fans would be happy. I know a lot of fight fans who were communicating and tweeting about this on Twitter, on Instagram, on whatever social media platform. McDonald confirmed himself. Rory McDonald confirmed that a lot of people agreed with him, that they scored the fight independently themselves, and they agreed that the win should have gone to him and not to his opponent. So it'll be interesting to see what they do about this, because I've heard stories about these judges, how they can just come out with these ridiculous results, and when everybody can see who, even if both fighters perform at their best, if it's going to be a draw, then okay, that's probably a little bit more, well, not more, but somewhat more bearable. Let me say somewhat more bearable. But to say that the other person has won, and you can clearly see that they haven't, their performance really doesn't support that, then that's where people start to get upset and concerned. Well, if they get this overturned and get it reversed, then I'd be happy. I'd be really happy. But let's see what happens. Now, the other point I was going to make, the other topic I wanted to discuss was the Anderson Silva versus Chavez junior boxing match. Now, I didn't know that had actually been scheduled, and I didn't know I didn't know that had been scheduled, and I had no idea that fight had actually taken place. It did take place just, I think, was it this past Sunday or Saturday, but it took place this past weekend. So I'm going to look at that, and I'm going to watch the fight properly before I give my own opinions on that fight, because I want to basically give my own analysis properly. But guys, I hope you've enjoyed this, and I hope you have bared and listened through painstakingly to the end. If you watched to this end, thank you. I just hope that my stuttering and tongue twisting of words didn't put you off. If you can catch me on Instagram, my name is IkeJarko1. On Twitter and on Facebook, my name is IkeJarko. I am trying to get a co-host to podcast with me. It's going to be an international sort of thing, but I'm going to see if I can make that happen. That is in the pipeline. It is in the works. So let's see. I'll see if I can get that going. I know it will help the podcast grow, because it's far more entertaining listening to two people who have who share the same interest in a particular topic. In this case, mixed martial arts. But it's far more entertaining to hear them talk and share their opinions on the whole matter, on anything that's going on in the sport and in the wider community as well. So guys, you can also catch my podcast. Sorry, that is in the works, and I'm trying to make that happen. You can also listen to my podcast on Spotify, Apple iTunes, and on Google Podcasts. And yes, all I can say is please do leave a like if you did like this video, and don't forget to subscribe if you do enjoy my content. Thank you very, very, very much.